Yes, I think, yes, we are live now. Exactly. So welcome everybody to this webinar. Today we have Cheryl Gallagher with us. Cheryl Gallagher is the Ministry of Culture of Asgardia. And she is giving this lecture in the frame of the preparation of the Space Renaissance International Fourth World Congress. These are the preliminary webinars. And today we have Cheryl Gallagher with us. We'll talk about current trends in advancing technology in space art and impact on space art culture. So, Maria will be happy to introduce you, introduce Cheryl briefly, and then we give you the floor. So, Maria.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Adriano and Cheryl. Thank you. So, tonight's our webinar title is Current Trends and Advancing Technologies in Space Art and Impacts on Space Art Culture. It will be presented by Cheryl Gallagher. A small abstract about our presentation tonight. So, advancement in digital technologies and contemporary creative tools, including AI-assisted art production, have significantly influenced discourse within the space sector and contributed to innovation in space-related fields. These developments have also sparked philosophical and epistemological dialogue among space artists, particularly across generations, as questions of authorship, authenticity, and technological integration reshape creative practice. Reflecting on these shifts encourages informed discussion, expands awareness of evolving methodologies, and honors the foundational contributions of earlier space art pioneers. Artistic representations of space concepts, whether technical visualization or interpretations of established and speculative theories, have long played a role in expanding the conceptual boundaries of space science and exploration. By challenging prevailing assumptions and reimagining humanity's trajectory beyond Earth, space art helps shape both cultural imagination and scientific ambition. In this way, artistic practice remains an essential component of the broader space renaissance, contributing to the cultural, intellectual, and civilizational foundation of humanity's future in space. A short bio about our speaker tonight. Cheryl Gallagher is a multifaceted artist and musician who has made significant and unique contributions to the fields of ambient electronic music and visual art since her retirement from a long career in health science. Her work is characterized by its spiritual depth and transcendental qualities, has earned her respect and recognition within the arts and ambient music communities. She is also known as a strong advocate in the aerospace community for positive human cultural evolution through her published articles, produced videos, and projects, support of various organizations for initiatives contributing to advanced human physical and cultural development in space. She is a valued contributor and serves in several roles among the space initiatives she advocates, such as Minister of Culture in Asgardia, the Space Renaissance community, and in several space reproduction, scientific space communities, and space advocacy groups over the year. Cheryl, you have the floor.
Thank you very much for that lovely introduction. I have my presentation prepared, so I'm going to share my screen now.
Yes.
Let me know if you see everything properly.
Not yet.
And how's that?
Now we see it, yeah. Good.
Okay, and you can see fully, okay, you can see everything. Yeah. All right, yes. Well, I'm gonna get started. It's a pretty good, decent length, and I know that we have plenty of time, but I'm hoping that we have discussion time afterward. Hi, I'm Cheryl Gallagher. Thanks for everyone watching, and thanks to Adriano for the invitation and the introduction. Always great to speak to space enthusiasts here at Space Renaissance International. Today's topic is current trends and advancing technologies in space art, impacts on space art culture, and our future lives in space. Here's a little bit more about me. Adriana already introduced me, so I won't dwell here. This is my LinkedIn and my website here and QR codes in case you're interested. I'll let you grab that. Today's presentation, I have several topics to cover. The topic of space art, past, present, and future, a little bit of a visit there. The impact of advancing AI technology on space art, and some questions around that. I'm going to compare and contrast several AI platforms, including addressing how do these platforms handle human-generated art when making AI art. I'll be summing up with AI and the future of humanity in general, because the impact of AI is not limited to space art. And I will be ending with a space art demonstration in which AI art, digital art, and ambient music work together beautifully to create an ambience that feels like a transformative space experience. Finally, when we're done, it'll be great if we're able to have a little bit of discussion on some of the topics that I introduce. I have to share that preparing for today's presentation was very fun. I'll be showing some of the fun things as well as sharing what I know and what I've learned. One of the most fun applications of AI tech is experiencing everyday human experiences without consequences. And in this case, many of us have been on the road with a dangerous speeder that seems hell-bent to kill themselves. This is a very short little clip. And it's funny because no one was harmed in the production of this clip. I think the Grim Reaper was a lovely touch there. Some generalizations. I want to emphasize that today is focused on largely introductory themes expressed in layman terms. This is not by any means a masterclass on AI. Also, because I'm focused on cultural dynamic and issues, I'll be talking about some of those points for our consideration. One thing I found out very quickly is that effective prompting is a critical skill and takes some practice. I found that I needed different prompting strategies for different platforms for each art generation AI platform. And so each of them had their strengths and weaknesses, and I'll be sharing what I found out. Art AI platforms and developing models remain either scary accurate or remarkably naive, in that whole range in understanding human experience. They seem to be better at humans than they used to be before, and several platforms almost seem to be approaching possible sentience, which, you know, is kind of like Claude and Anthropic. We've heard a lot about them lately in the news. It is said that current technologies have already scrubbed the entire contents of the internet, but does that mean that they are bound to the past? Like, is it hard for them to actually innovate future technologies? I understand what they are good at is scrubbing all that huge, massive amount of content and coming up with new solutions. And that's been really innovative in areas like cancer research, for example, where by scrubbing through vast amounts of research, they're able to come up with novel possible solutions. So that has been a great advance. When I think that personally, when we master quantum computing and bridge the gap between AI general intelligence and AI superintelligence, then we will have more future thinking AI. And I'm hoping that it remains an interactive experience between humans and AI. It could possibly be more useful in many respects. And because of our current status, you know, the prospects also seem pretty scary in some ways.
Evening, folks. I'm Wilford Brimley, and somehow they've let me sit at this shiny desk. There's supposed to be a script here. There isn't, so we're just going to wing it like a goose with a GPS. The big headline in the...
I'm sorry about the quality of that video. I don't know why that was doubled, but That was Wilfred Brimley, and he is a famous American actor. He's been passed away now 5 years, but AI platforms are full of free content using his image and generating, his warm human personality. There's two reasons I bring this up. One is, what are the rights of Wilfred Brimley's family with regard to the use of his image? And do they have any rights? And then the other aspect is, as we explore space, and this is also applies to the generation of space art, as we explore space, will it be important for humanity to have access to human feeling, AI generated people, essentially, to be able to maintain a sense of community and good mental health as we explore vast expanses of space with relatively few people? And I expand on some of the implications of that later in my presentation. Like all human innovations and discoveries, new and unfamiliar technological advances in thought, reasoning, science, and art that are accepted normal now would be unacceptable in past context. In technological fields, they're considered useful advances, but in areas that encroach on specifically and uniquely human creative abilities, the use of those tools could be possibly considered as cheating or inauthentic. Some generations may be unwilling to accept their utility as valid expressions of creativity and authenticity. And so for them, the use of such tools are often considered unacceptable. This is a very hot topic. People have very strong opinions about this. On some level, it feels a little bit short-sighted, and it's kind of a nuanced topic because I think over time, AI as a workable tool that works alongside humanity could be very beneficial, like a lot of creative tools that we have today that we didn't even have 20 years ago. But I certainly understand the context of what constitutes actual human space art. With regard to original content and concepts of ownership and copyright, governments continue to struggle to draw the line between original and technology-generated content. And it kind of is settling slowly upon evaluating the involvement of the human in the creation of the art and the rights of current copyright holders regarding the scrubbed content that the technologies are referencing in the new creative content. It's kind of a big topic. It's very difficult to manage. And it's also complicated by the fact that there's a lot of governments and businesses that don't acknowledge any such rights at all. They don't feel like that scrubbing the internet for content implies that there is any right by the person who generated that original content in the future content. And I'm not sure if I agree with that. I think it's another area that needs consideration, and that we need to find some standards for the use of AI in the generation of creative human content. Visiting the past, space art, this is always a fun thing to do. It was originally produced painstakingly by hand and printed on paper posters and publications intended for the future-focused minority. Early science fiction, which started kind of around the late 1800s, right, and exploded in the mid 20th century, gave rise to both imaginary and real technological innovations that we now use every day. But, at the time, they were completely outside of the possible. And that was only decades ago. Very cool and retro now. This style is popularly reproduced. The art reflected the levels of scientific assumptions, thought, and knowledge that we had at the time. And in this aspect, it continues that legacy. The science fiction drives that scientific innovation that eventually becomes science fact. That's a common phenomenon that we now take for granted, and space art has an incredibly important role in that process. This space art, mostly movie posters, spans the mid-1960s to the mid-1980s. They were still painstakingly and extremely well designed and executed in classic artist fashion to promote science fiction movie classics that generations grew up with and are still deeply loved. It wasn't until E.T. in 1985 that we start to see special effects and Photoshop in the space art being produced. And that was now 41 years ago, and little Drew Barrymore is now approaching retirement age. So that's pretty daunting for people like me. An original ET poster now goes for about $3,000. Various posters of 2001 A Space Odyssey range in value from $1,000 to up to $14,000, of course. Obviously, because of the condition and the rarity of the poster at hand. For example, second from the left on the bottom there, that is one of Robert McCall's posters, and it remains one of the favorites among collectors. This one goes for about $4,000 on the current market. When we're talking about present space art, art themed with outer space, space travel, space science, and space colonization themes are extremely common. However, traditional space artists approaching their art practice perspective fairly conservatively contend that real art must come from the heart and hands of a human being versus generated by an engine on a prompt, and hotly clash with younger generations expert at AI models over definitions of what art really is and what constitutes genuine original space art. I've participated in a number of exhibitions in which AI-generated artworks were not welcome to submit, and then part of others in which the format and the source of the art was not the critical factor. It's a very hotly contended topic, and I observe that it continues to remain so as technologies advance and improve. I imagine that eventually over time, a balance will be struck, as with most of the technologies we've experienced over the course of our civilization. I'm a member of the International Association of Astronautical Artists. And in that capacity, I participated in the Women's Artists of IAA series. This is just a short 3-minute clip demonstrating some current space art done in traditional style. The IAA leans relatively conservatively on the topic of AI-generated space art.
Hello? Is something
Hello? Yes?
I don't know, something on the audio?
And what is going on with the audio? Is it doubled?
I don't hear anything.
You don't hear anything. Oh,
No.
that's wild.
I hear you, but not the audio of your video.
Of the video. Okay. Well, I can hear it perfectly here. So let me just quickly check here. My stuff is let's try this. Let's see if you hear. Let me give me feedback right away. Do you hear? Let me see if you hear it. Do you hear any music?
Yes, now we listen it. Yes.
Oh, all right. It was one of the many settings in Zoom. I'll continue. Did you want me to start this over, or are you fine? Is it fine to just continue?
Yes, please go.
Okay.
Let's see.
Now let's distinguish the use of digital tools versus AI use. This is Multiverse Moons. The base image is a photo that I took of a full moon on a clear night outside my home. There's no AI specifically involved here, just digital photo tools such as Photoshop, Photolab Pro, and PopPic, which is what's rendering the 3D effects and movement that's seen in the image. Pulsar published this image in, still photo format, so no PopPic. And this digital artwork also went to the moon in a cultural time capsule mounted onto the Blue Ghost lander, and now will be tokenized into a real-world asset to become part of a budding new space economy based on integrity and accountability. Those platforms are developing rapidly. The amount of human contact to create the work is paramount, and some would maybe still challenge whether this is still considered traditional art. Now let's start talking about AI and space art generators. Are they really the future? Well, yeah, they seem to be, and there's a lot to say about that topic. Here's some things that I discovered in my investigation. As much as various platforms are hyped, they almost always don't get things quite right. And in most platforms, each time that you generate an edit of your prompt or an edit of your image, you are charged the same amount as you paid to generate the first image. Not every platform works that way, but in the case of the ones that I used, I had to make investments in order to be able to generate the art that I'm going to demonstrate for you today. Again, they are often scrubbing from the past and referencing creating the art. And so does this constitute a form of pseudo-creativity in which the human is not the one coming up with the concept, it's coming from the AI engine. That said, these can be really great tools. Prompted correctly, they can really speed up processes and drive innovation. As the technologies improve, I imagine that they are going to continue improving in terms of their usefulness as tools. And the other kind of psychological effect that I've noticed with people trying some of these AI space art generating tools, they can really help people who feel like they lack access to the creative side of their personality. I've seen this in scientists that really feel like they're very left-brained, and really watched them revel in the development of their creative potential through being able to use these AI art generators. And I find that most of them move on to exploring their own creative potential from there. So there's some benefit to that. As usual, there's both a darker side and a lighter potential when we're considering what this means for humanity in general and the topic of space art specifically. Let's explore some space art, some art generators in general. So we're finding that, a lot of people use this to animate movies of themselves or their friends and family. And with the technologies that we currently have for being able to work with that, they've rapidly improved. I used the phone app AI Video to take this photograph of my great-grandmother that dates from 1905 and bringing her to life. And I have to admit that the results are quite charming. It's quite nice to imagine her when she was living in that age. They have a more difficult time, all these art generators, in using human-generated art. So art as, like, for example, you just saw in the women's artists demonstration, to create AI-generated art. And I spent significant time seeing what that interaction would be like and what the AI generators could do with human-generated art. Here's a number of platform ratings. They rank from Nana Banana Pro seems to be topping most people's lists by quite a span. It's not perfect, but it does do a lot of things very well. And you can see that these are like the top 7 rated by, in this case, Deep Dream Generator. And you can see that it drops from 9.7 to 6.9 pretty quickly with regard to the usefulness and effectiveness of the different engines. They all have their different strengths and weaknesses. Here's an example of Deep Dream Generator. This is something that anybody can access through Google. This is a Google product. And here I'm showing their image generator. This is both very inexpensive, and the resulting work, depending on the prompt, can be very nice quality. Again, the prompting is a really critical skill, and you may still get kind of distorted responses. So sometimes it takes a little bit. The AI is not really very intuitive, but it does do a pretty effective job often. This is Deep Dream Generator's library of AI generation models for video. It can use both a visual prompt and the text prompt. Normally, you can use both. And there's a variety of things that can be done with this. You can also see on the top that you can generate music. You can upscale the AI that you have, and it gives a variety of tools. So this is really a great resource, Deep Dream Generator, if you are pro using AI to generate work. And so once again, in my case, what I did was use human-generated art to create AI-generated art, and I'm going to show you those results in just a moment. But when you're just going by prompt, here's a few examples generated by Deep Dream Generator. On the left, you see and Sora AI on the Deep Dream Generator platform. So both those things are there. So in the middle, you see two images that were generated by the image generator with their captions. You can see that they did a pretty good, believable. To me, the utility of this is if you're doing a presentation and you need a particular image and you can't quite find what you want on the stock licensed image platforms that are available and that people use on a daily basis, that you could use Deep Dream Generator to generate what you need. Now, what's the copyright on that? That is still questionable, and it's still debated, and it's kind of all over the place. But nevertheless, if you're doing a presentation like this one, you can generate some pretty nice stuff that's pretty useful. On the left, that's supposed to be the surface of Saturn. Someone observed that Saturn doesn't have a solid surface to walk on. And for me, it would be like, well, that could be easily the surface of Enceladus, just out, in Saturn's orbit. On the right, you can see it's a very short movie trailer generated completely by AI on a prompt. And so let's see how those things turned out. The other thing that you notice is that the AI tends to generate the soundtrack, and so that's true of the film trailer too.
We charted the stars. We never imagine what lives between them.
If we miss our window, everything we know is gone. Starless horizon. Only.
And that's a very interesting little trailer, but it does, on a certain level, it's like the plot of every space movie ever. And so there is that aspect. It's scrubbing from the past in order to produce new, quote unquote, new content. And so what are the implications for that when it comes to creativity? So you might have seen this image in the Women's Artist series I showed earlier. This is Cassini over Enceladus. And using the same prompt and this same image across different AI art platforms, this is the image that I used. And so I will, in just a little bit, I will show you the results of that. First, I'm going to show you a couple of tries with other platforms. On the left is a painting that I did in 2018. And I started with a very simple prompt. Basically for her hair to move, for her earrings to move, and for her eyes to blink. I found that across different engines, the results were highly variable depending on that engine. It could be, these platforms are very costly for very small amounts of content when it comes to video. And I found that these engines, if they are challenged or if there's an edit requested, they jump to just creating their own content and not using yours. They just completely eliminate it and do their own thing. So here's a couple of examples of that. The image on the left, I'm going to show you what it did the first time on the right. And then so you can see the eyes blink, the earrings jingle, but the hair doesn't move. And I'm not quite sure about that. Did it not recognize the white hair as hair, or what happened? So I re-prompted for correction on that. And this is what it generated. It's perfectly lovely. I don't know if those are stars or dandruff coming from her hair, but her hair doesn't actually move. The earrings don't move. She's blinking. She's very beautiful. I kind of liked what they did, what was done in the lower left-hand corner with the fire and the two people. That's not what I painted, but that is also interesting. The question here is this my art still? Can I still consider this a piece of my art? And I had to, pay for this second version, and yet I didn't get what I was actually requesting. So that is a a qualitative statement. What do we think about that? Here's another example. This is Venusian landscape. It was published in Pulsar recently, and what I asked was very simple. I just wanted the clouds to be animated, and let's see what was generated first. First of all, you can see that the image was cropped, and instead of changing the clouds or making the clouds move, there are changes in the landscape that I don't know if that's effective or not. So I went back and requested again and restated that I wanted the clouds to move and the landscape to stay the same. And once again, my painting was pitched out in favor of AI generated content. So again, very nice. There's nothing wrong with it as far as it goes. But again, is this AI art? Is it better or worse than my idea? What do we think about AI art that is generated this way? Again, I was, didn't really do what I wanted it to do, and I still had to pay for it. Then I went to my phone to generate using Sora 2 on the iPhone. This is a ChatGPT product. Sora on both the desktop and the phone come with ChatGPT subscription plans. So all I asked this time was for the clouds that are passing in front of the moon that you see there, move those, that have them float through the sky. And so the first time, this is what I got. Nothing really wrong with that. There are clouds moving, but it's not the clouds in front of the face of the moon. That's not really moving. And so I reprompted again and generated this. This time I found it interesting because what it did was interpret the blue line in the background that's part of my painting as ocean surface. And so you can see that the clouds did move across the face of the moon itself and also generated shadows on the water. So that was an interesting outcome. Next, I moved on to Dream AI. This time I didn't use any kind of visual prompt. I only made a simple prompt, and it asked for a domed Mars base, meaning a dome over the whole base, with a rover and 2 astronauts and an alien scientist. Just keep it simple. In the upper left-hand corner, you see it's a female astronaut. There's no male astronaut, and there's 2 aliens instead. You can kind of see the implication of a possible dome in the background, and you can see the rover there. I suppose if it's possible that you might not need a helmet, but in general, on the surface of Mars, you would definitely need a full astronaut's costume in order to survive on the surface. On the lower right, you can see that instead of there being a dome over the entire thing, like a domed city, the Mars base is domed itself. And you can see that she's wearing a helmet, but still there's, and one of the 2 scientists are the 2 astronauts. One of them is an alien that doesn't need a helmet, apparently, and then there's another alien. So again, it wasn't exactly what I asked for. Let's just play these real quick. That's one. And then the other. Still pretty impressive, but it would still take several other tries to get what I wanted. And then how do you make this, be useful on an economic basis? Next, I moved on to Adobe Firefly. This is a much more expensive platform. You have to buy a monthly subscription, and you also have to buy credits to be able to use while you're in the app. You're only given a certain small amount of credits with your subscription, and you have to buy anything extra, and I found both of them to be very expensive. You can see that the result is also pretty impressive. You can see that I used a very elaborate prompt, and I actually used ChatGPT to produce the most efficient prompt because, again, this was kind of an expensive thing to do. And so here's a demonstration of what occurred. What I requested basically was a male and a female astronaut, one robot and one alien, and for the robot and alien to be standing at research panels behind the two pilots that you see in the image, and they were flying to Mars. So that's the basic idea. What I found was, I mean, to me, it kind of looks like the robot and the alien are at the minimum in front of the astronauts. There's no male astronaut. It looks like there's two robots instead. And I didn't appreciate that the female astronaut is not in a uniform. It seemed a little bit stereotypical to me. So this image, the initial image, was 500 credits. And so after getting this result, I edited the prompt. I made a request for the male astronaut again. I wanted the female astronaut clothed. And once again, I requested the robot and the alien to appear behind the two pilots here heading toward Mars. And what I found was the original was 500 credits. The edit was 1,000 credits. It's only 4 seconds of content. And the edited product, although it was deducted the 1,000 credits, none of what I was requested was produced, and yet I was still charged the credits. I'm going to play it for you, but basically I unsubscribed from Adobe Firefly, and I have to report that Adobe did give me a full refund for that subscription, although not the 1,500 credits. It's not as if this result is low quality or anything. It's very high quality, but at the same time, it's not what I asked for. And for me, I feel like, especially when it's quite so expensive, that it really needs to be exactly what I want. Next, I moved to Sora Desktop. I explained that it was ChatGPT, and in this case, I used a prompt only. It's a very simple prompt. Give me a flyover of a futuristic dome city built in a frozen Antarctica environment. It took me 3 tries, but because I have a subscription with ChatGPT, it didn't really cost me extra in this case. I upgraded to a plus plan to be able to have access to this, and it did turn out a pretty decent product for far less expensive than Adobe Firefly. I know the cost isn't necessarily the most important thing that I'm discussing here, but I'm just mentioning it for people's information. You can see that this is actually, pretty decent. You see, this was the image that I started with at the beginning of a presentation, and it's what I asked for. So, I'm satisfied with this result. Next, I went back to Deep Dream Generator, and here's where I'm going to use my painting, Cassini over Enceladus, to generate AI video using some of the models you see to your left. I just used a few. Again, I had to pay each time for credits to be able to use to create these videos. I'm just going to show you the results that I got. This is CDance 1.5. I used the exact same prompt 3 times with 3 different platforms. Animate this space art painting. The Cassini satellite surveys the surface of Enceladus that has icy water sprays emanating from its surface as the planet Saturn rotates slowly in the background. I noticed that CDance slightly cropped my image to fit the ratio that they give as an end product. But let's take a look at what was produced. This is not terrible. I don't know. I don't think Cassini has solar panels like that, and I don't know what that white streak is going across the surface. So I would have to reprompt, and if I did the reprompt, I would be charged again. Saturn seems to be perfectly fine. You can see some movement in the rings. It's not exactly rotating, but I don't consider this completely unsatisfactory. However, there are elements that I didn't ask for in the video generated. Next, I went to Grok 2, which is Elon Musk product. in this case, my image wasn't cropped, but the ratio was changed, and so it's a bit compressed. The painting isn't the ratio the original ratio. Same exact prompt that I used before, and let's see what Grok 2 does with the information. All right, so Cassini is kind of nice. The movement of Saturn is a little unnatural in the background, but at least it was able to fill in the information about Saturn as it was rotating. But those icy water sprays look like the water show at the Bellagio in Las Vegas. It's really not, that's not really usable. I would have, again, this was more expensive than either Seedance or the next platform that I'm going to use, that I'm going to demonstrate. And I would have had to pay the same full amount of credits for a new iteration. This is Pro Video. I think you can see here that that Pro Video maintained both the ratio and the dimensions of the original painting. Again, same exact prompt. And let's see what Pro Video did with it. This is really not bad. This is, it's less expensive than the other ones. The results are at a lower resolution, and it's a pretty short video for 5 seconds. However, the ice sprays that I painted into the painting are moving. Cassini remains pretty good, and Saturn is fine. Let's look at that again. But is it a little mono and boring? I mean, but I'd say of the 3 platforms that I'm demonstrating, this one is closest to the prompt that was requested. I'll show it one more time. Not unsatisfactory. So now we're back to the same question. What constitutes original space art? Human-based art, AI-prompted based art, or like what I was demonstrating, a combination of both. What do we do about the copyright holders of original works that were scrubbed? I know that many artists are very upset. Both artists and musicians are very upset about the use of their materials in terms of AI-generated work. What is the relative value and merit, both monetary and artistic, of human-based and AI prompt-generated art? There's a lot of different platforms being tested, a lot of different businesses being generated by the creation of these art platforms. And so what does that mean for humanity and for space art? Is the AI art actually aesthetically more pleasing if it's unlimited by human minds and hands? I mean, you looked at the art examples that I gave earlier, and it's possible that some might consider that, the AI art was actually nicer than my work. What does that mean? What does that imply anything in terms of validity? And is it possible with this new form of, I've been talking about how important AI prompting is in the process. Is an expertly nuanced AI prompter like a poet, like a, does it qualify as a new art form in itself? Is there anything to the validity of someone that really knows how to use the technology in the art that's produced? Because I know I've seen some pretty remarkable, beautiful examples of AI art, and it leaves me with these questions. Now I'm going to move on to broader cultural implications for humanity and AI, and a cautionary discussion. This is kind of might get a little bit dark, but hear me out, and it opens up the future discussion for what is the future of AI and humanity, and then AI space art, human-based space art, and humanity in space. So current observations of how the generations are already evolving and some hazards of that, some of that has to, I wonder if this is something, I noticed that the generations, for example, my generation that was raised with none of these things in existence versus kids now that are kind of handed a phone or an iPad when they're very, very young, what the implications are for their use of the technology. And I'm finding it a cautionary tale. So I'm going to introduce to you this Sabrina Romanoff. She's a very forward-thinking AI entrepreneur and social media influencer. She works a lot with young people trying to break into the area of AI content generation. And she's a very smart cookie with regard to these things. I'm going to play just a short clip. Again, I hope the audio is okay. If not, I'm going to summarize afterwards some things that she has to say about how people are using ChatGPT currently.
Here are 9 unhinged ways people are actually using ChatGPT you won't. Here are 9 unhinged ways people are actually using ChatGPT you won't.
Okay, I'm going to stop and scrub it forward because I think that the audio is not going to line up. Let me summarize what she has to say really quickly. Sabrina was talking about several ways that people are using ChatGPT to help themselves in their lives. And some of them are not too much different than how we use Google, looking up how to change a light bulb or fix an item or, the typical things that we already use computer for. Some of the things that she said that concerned me, though, was using ChatGPT to check on what the children were watching on TV, or what videos the children were watching on their computers. And to me, it's like, as a parent myself, I have a hard time not going in there and knowing what the kids are watching on TV. I don't know if I would ask ChatGPT that. Another thing that was a caution to me was having ChatGPT tell you on a daily basis what exercise you should be doing and what food you should be eating based on the day of your menstrual cycle, or using ChatGPT to you take pictures of your closet and have ChatGPT tell you everything about like where you should put things. And the concern that I have in the uses that she describes in this video, I continue to explain. So let me just get past Sabrina here. I'm sorry that didn't work out.
Some of the things that she's saying are things that we currently use Google for as we go through our daily lives, like instructions about how to fix things, use things, change items. It's very convenient and very useful in terms of learning about whatever it is that you need to learn at the moment. Some of her suggestions seem worrisome to me. For example, using ChatGPT to help you manage your pregnancy. That seems to be something that you might need, that human interaction. I'm not sure I would count on ChatGPT for something like that. Likewise, using ChatGPT to figure out what the kids are watching. To me, it's like important for parents to take responsibility for the content that their children are watching on any technology. Some people might consider that my personal opinion, but the cautionary part of that is the fact that we're becoming less reliant on human interaction of any kind. And again, this might be the result of, rather than interacting as a family in social contexts, like going out to a restaurant, instead of interacting with the child, you just hand them the phone or an iPad. And then, the child is kind of occupied while you're having dinner. And to me, it's like that leads to no real sense of community or interpersonal connection, where they have more of an attachment to their technology and less of an attachment to family, friends, teachers, and etc. People, because our interactions I understand that it can be a source of a lot of trauma, but family interactions are really important for us to learn from each other. And young people finding humans less than trustworthy trust their devices far more. So they're willing to be in relationship and obey the instructions of the programs on their computers and devices. And I think we're aware of vulnerable teenagers, committing suicide because ChatGPT told them to do so and stuff. It's really an issue that has to be worked with and considered. My main concern is humanity's losing the ability to problem solve or reason through crises that might be unique, like they wouldn't be able to deal with it. And if we didn't have the internet for some reason, there's a lot of global crises that might knock out our internet. What does that imply for our resiliency? Are we going to experience resiliency loss and problem solving if we don't have access to technological tools? This is something that really needs to be considered as we move forward in time. And the other thing I notice is that there's more and more descriptions of young people becoming almost completely unself-aware and yet completely self-absorbed and affected by what they're experiencing on technological platforms. Who should be managing that? Should there be any outside regulation? Is that something that should be regulated by the technologies? How much responsibility do they have? Right now, Meta is in an active case in which a parent is taking Meta to court for the impact that Meta's social media platforms had in the suicide of their daughter. So that's being actively debated right now in court. One question that comes to me on a cultural basis are we losing what makes us uniquely human by relying on technology for creative inspiration? And I know that there's very cynical people in the world that feel like that's no great loss. I'm not among those people because I do see a distinction between what we can do as humans and what the AI is currently capable of. Likewise, there are significant, impactful environmental issues around the topic of AI. This is another hot topic that generates a lot of controversy with the current explosion in the construction of AI data centers. AI data centers, by the nature of using our current computer technology, uses massive amounts of local resources, both in water and electricity, and that is impacting heavily some of the communities in which these database centers are based. It tends to be that once one data center goes up in an area, a bunch of them go up in the same area because some cities are regulating the ability to come into their areas. Not just AI data centers, but this is like an issue with cryptocurrency as well. Limiting the amount of data centers that can be in their area because of the heavy demands on local resources for the population. It's decreasing local supply and greatly increasing demand in these communities, which is driving up the cost for families and individuals living in these communities, and therefore increasing financial pressure on human beings during already stressful economic conditions. I know that's true in the United States. In the meantime, trillions of an investment in AI infrastructure is both necessary and expected over just the next few years. Big tech has already invested vast amounts of capital into the development of AI tech, and they're still behind on being able to show profits with regard to the massive amounts already being invested. And I have a few examples there. OpenAI generated $13.1 billion in 2025, while investing $8 billion, so that's the highest in the industry. But it's projecting a $600 billion spending target by 2030, which is just 3.5 years from now. So with not having so much of a profit generation, while it's in active development, and while there's still issues and problems and things being worked out with regard to AI, are we facing a tech bubble with regarding to AI in terms of financial investment, or are we facing a cumulative loss like the .com debacle earlier in our civilization's history? Likewise, when it comes to frameworks, is big tech responsible enough to be self-regulating so that we mitigate some of the harm to humans and communities as we grow AI as a valuable human evolutionary advance? Or are we going to need regulatory frameworks imposed on them? And likewise, there's huge amounts of money flowing in and out of governments and in between companies and throughout the industry. And it's a little bit, they make reference to it being kind of like the gold rush right now. So these are very important questions with regard to the development of AI. Global AI tech is counting on fast consumer uptake, and they really are looking for reliance on AI going forward. There's already discussed massive demands on Earth's natural resources. So how are we going to mitigate and manage that as the technology advances? And in my opinion, innovations and improvements in both the technology and these demands, already discussed, and in AI business models are badly needed, because right now it's generating extreme profit pressure, and that's where you see businesses pushing out humans kind of prematurely, because I think all of us have been stuck with an AI chatbot, some basic customer service with no humans available to deal with the nuances of your individual problems. And that's just one tiny impact on what we're facing in terms of development. So we can clearly see the impacts on overall human, global, social, cultural, and economic conditions. This also impacts space, because how are we going to manage? We're going to need all this AI technology in space, and how are we going to deal with the electricity and water demands? Using the current models, we're going to need rapid improvement in innovation in terms of how AI is generated. Again, is this going to be solved by quantum computing as quantum computing advances? That's yet to be seen. And how do we mitigate short and long-term effects on the global human population? How do we prepare the global human population for advanced technology? We already have widely varying access to even the internet still, never mind the impact of these AI tools. And so is that just going to expand the vast differences, or is this a tool that could possibly tie us all together? How do we drive positive human evolutionary outcomes as humans integrate with artificial intelligence technologies as well as future tech? Because I feel like that causes humanity to kind of hang in the balance right now. What can we and what should we do about it? How do we prepare the human global population for these advancing technologies? And, I also want to make a mention of, there are businesses creating things like technological tools that mark creative. This is in turn going back to the topic of space art that's human generated. Tools for artists around the world to be able to mark their AI, or mark their creative output in general, whether it's their face, their work, their space art, whatever, so that it can't be scrubbed by AI technologies and used in other people's content. That's one approach. I think there's, I think it's called Haven Social, is one small beginning tech startup that is working on software that marks creative content, so that it can't be essentially stolen in the creation of new art. So those technologies are also in play, and along with all the other things I've described. So how do we strike the balance for humanity's future in space? Because I contend that once we leave Earth to live in space, and especially once we are too far distant to easily return to Earth, we will be pioneers on our own again. Pioneering is well established in human civilization, and we will need all the attributes and mindsets of successful pioneers in order to survive as a species and as a civilization. And we will be doing that in the harshest conditions we have ever faced. We have so much going on with regard to what we face as human beings living and colonizing space. And I also contend that it starts here on Earth. In my opinion, we are way overdue for a transformative update on how we human, how we define humanity, how we live together, how we interact with each other and in community, and how we incorporate current and future advanced tech into our lives and the lives of our children that has a positive and healthy outcome. One observation I have is that our education systems, lifestyles, and systems are now almost completely obsolete, and they require immediate renovation, not just to be shifted or changed or eliminated or whatever. It needs renovation. We need to think about it and approach education worldwide on a different level. And these things are going to require appropriate and responsible oversight. I would hope for the generators and producers of these advanced technologies to be using appropriate and responsible oversight themselves. For example, but we can see the complications of that, for example, Anthropic and their interactions with the US government and how they've lost all their contracts because they are putting a values limit on the US government's use of AI technologies. They don't want their technology used to surveil the general public or to work with weapon systems without human intervention or human oversight on the use of weapons against humans around the world. So we'll see. That's a developing story, and it's and then we also see, like we're saying, how much responsibility do AI tech companies have? A lot of them, they're like, well, we have no responsibility for how our product is used once it goes out. And, I think that there's a balance to be struck. It also depends on how this technology develops going forward. After that kind of dark discussion, it's time to move on to a demonstration of space art that is incorporating human art, AI-generated art, ambient music, and fractal science in order to create a piece of space art that kind of suspends time and space and gives a sense of what it would be like traveling through new dimensions we've never explored before. And so this is a piece of art generated a number of years ago. It goes along with a piece of ambient music that I released with my partner Howard Given several years ago, and I hope you really enjoy it. Here we go.
Very beautiful,
Thank you.
fascinating.
Yeah. It's really interesting to work with.
Yes.
It's
But
just about I have a final remark. One more slide is coming. The thank you slide.
and just a question, is this digital art or is somehow
It's a combination of all the different. Here, I'll explain it just now.
And I just wanted to let the audience know, I hope you really enjoyed that, that the AI generation of that imagery was a program called FRAX, F-R-A-X. It's basically a fractal generator that has both templates and pretty much infinitely adjustable parameters. And so that's what was used to be able to generate the imagery. The music is ambient electronic music from Spotted Peccary Studios, as you know, but that was done by people. And I created the imagery and the timing that you experienced in that video, as well as using traditional video production techniques in making the video that you experienced. So that's kind of an experience. That is kind of an example of, if not, traditional space art, but kind of space vibey feeling, and a collaboration between human creative potential using AI as a tool, and also traditional methods of creative endeavor in the creation of that video. So that concludes my talk. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope we have a little bit of time here to discuss all the implications of this huge topic of the impact of AI on space art and the future of humanity. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. It was an incredible presentation, really very, very rich and beautiful forms and things that we have seen. And also a lot of information about the artificial intelligence tools, that there are a lot of them now. And I see that you have spent time to test them and to see what they are able to do. What I understand, because I also have not such extensive experience with ChatGPT and Perplexity and Adobe and so on, but I have used it. I have used these tools to generate some images for my presentation, my PowerPoint presentation.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to say that the best use of these tools is to work on text for my use, to work on text, because it's very, very quick and useful when you have to, let me say, to reduce a big text to get a summary.
Exactly.
Abstracting the key concepts, that is very, very, very good help that I have in making that. And also somehow restyling some text. If you have a scientific text that you want to get a newsletter text, so to get it in a more outreachable format, let me say, then I think these tools are really very useful.
Yes.
As an artist, because I have one of my one of my personalities is an artistic one.
Yes, you're a musician. We still have to play some jazz, I think.
I know. At this point, people used to ask me, "How many are you in your brain? How many are you there inside you?" Yes, too many sometimes. However, I am also an artist, mainly on the music side, musical side. But I also used to paint something when I was very much younger than now. And so what I have understood from your excursus of today is that maybe the most difficult thing, and I have experimented too, is to transmit your emotion in your artwork if you want it to be developed by an artificial intelligence tool. Then that is quite impossible.
And it's
Because
that is kind of the end conclusion is
you
that
cannot
there's
put your
still
feeling. Yeah,
yes.
that is the
And I
problem.
notice often some of the art is really outstandingly visually beautiful, but there's an element of soul missing.
Exactly.
And that
Exactly.
is that is still where it really requires human interaction with the tools. That's why I still consider AI a tool. I recognize that some people don't use it that way. And like you said, when you were talking about text and AI and adjusting your text, it's important to use prompting techniques that ensure that you're getting accurate information and that the AI isn't kind of making stuff up. We've
Yes, yes,
heard
yes.
about how
And
important
that's
that is.
of course, that is useful
Hmm.
if I am not trying to write a poetry, let me say.
Right.
Because if I want to write a poetry or even a piece of prose, but I want to put myself, my soul in it, then I cannot rely on an artificial intelligence
Right.
tool.
Right.
That's it. Because this leads us to a question. If
Hmm.
we are talking about art today, okay?
Yes.
We don't consider scientific
I know yeah,
domains.
I touched on some pretty
Uh-uh.
global topics with regard to
What
AI, but
does
on the
what
focus of art.
what does an artist really need?
Well,
An artist need, for me,
mm-hmm.
to be supported, helped to improve its own techniques.
Right.
So
Yeah,
what
there
I really need
there are aspects.
as a musician, if I could be supported to making the right, I don't refuse to work at all. I don't want anything that give me free of charge some capabilities. I
Hmm.
don't need that. I
Hmm.
am used to work. I am used to practice on my instrument. I
Hmm.
love to do it.
Yes.
I would be very much to be supported to to have a more productive study, a more productive practicing, a more efficient way to remove my psychological blocks because I
Indeed.
feel the blocks
Yes, indeed.
when I think about a music phrase and I want it to be transmitted to my instrument through my fingers,
Hmm.
I feel my psychological blocks that prevent me to have completely uh, putting my feeling in my music. That's where I would like to be helped.
Right.
But maybe
Right.
this is a more advanced stage.
Yes.
This is a
That's it.
stage
You're making an important
when
point, and that is,
we will have technology integrated in our physiology.
hmm,
It's
hmm,
some kind
exactly.
of cybernetic fusion, between biology and electronics. And maybe
Yes.
electronics at that point, electronics will be organic, totally organic.
Yeah.
Therefore, there will be no more difference.
Right.
So when when
Yeah.
I when I think about post-humanity, I'm not thinking about an electronic form of life that will replace humans. No, I am thinking about let me say, a superhuman, maybe
Mhm.
superhuman, but a humanity in full control with better tools and better databases connected directly to our mind.
Mm-hmm.
better
Mm-hmm.
better capability to use the power of our mind. That's very big.
Right,
But
to
we only
expand our
use
ability,
we
to
only
expand
use
our
only
abilities.
we
And
only
what you're
use
saying
10%.
is
10%.
wanting more integration.
Yes.
But I don't think I'm ready for the chip yet. I think we have to, like, some of the issues that I brought up in the lecture about governance and values regulation. It's a very tender thing, right? And we've seen a number of movies try to tackle it. And if you're a musician and you're familiar and you play your acoustic instruments, you're also aware that, like, you and I are both of the same generation, that synthesizers and MIDI technology was introduced in our lifetimes. And it used to be at the beginning of that technology that was very disruptive to the music industry. They were saying there were going to be no more studio musicians, that the music that was coming from the synthesizers wasn't real. And the same conversation happened with music and advanced technologies as we're having now with art and technologies, or as you're saying, things that rely on the truly human element, our human soul elements that AI hasn't really captured yet. It's not a human yet. It's not sentient yet. It's not. We aren't to the level of not only super intelligence, but the nuance of what it means to be human. And that's part of why I was asking some of those questions. But we did see, now that we're here, like in this modern age, there's no longer really controversy about the use of synthesizers in music. There is a nuance to it. There's an integrated use between the artist and the technology to be able to do the emoting and indeed get over some of the psychological blocks, because some of the tools assist us so that we don't get hung up on some of the things we used to get hung up on. So I'm hoping that as we go forward with space art and AI in general with technology, that the use of it as a tool is important, and it doesn't displace humanity and human potential.
Sure. Yes. So, okay, I think we are at the end.
We went over time a little bit.
It was a really beautiful webinar today.
Okay, thank you.
Spoke to my heart, not only to my mind, and that's what we want to do. Definitely.
Yeah, and hopefully the audience found the content kind of interesting, trying all these different things with different platforms to see what would happen.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't have a lot of experience yet, so now I hope people are inspired to give it a try and see what they think themselves about creating with AI tools in association with our humanity, and for us to not lose our humanity as we go forward. We're in very complex times with regard to human development.
I would also recall that we will have our Congress from the 30th of June to the 4th of July. That will be 5 days, the Space Renaissance International 4th World Congress. And we will have a session dedicated to art, to space art. And there we will discuss.
Continue the conversation.
Yes.
Update our findings.
And I invite everybody to submit their abstracts for a paper to participate to this session, this space art session of SRI Congress. And you will find everything on the website, on the spacerenaissance.space website, and also on the 2026.spacerenaissance.space. That is the website dedicated to the Congress. So we wait you, everybody, to our Congress and to the next webinars that we will. Okay, recording stopped. We don't need recording because this video will remain on YouTube, so no problems of recording. And okay, so next week, the 9th of March, we will have Sabine Heinz talking about her experience with an analog training session in Poland, I think. So it will be very interesting. Sabine Heinz is an artist too. So she will talk about her experience in this simulated astronautic analog training session as an artist. So she will, I think she will tell us very interesting things too. Okay. So Cheryl, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm always
let's see.
happy to be here.
Next time. Okay. Thank you so much.